Good morning and welcome to Business Morning here on BusinessDay Television. I am Deborah Ezeh. Thank you for starting your day with us. Now let's move to the first conversation for today. In recent years, Nigeria has rolled out a variety of humanitarian and poverty alleviation programs, from social investment schemes to targeted cash transfers aimed at supporting the country's most vulnerable population. But as the economic landscape shifts and fiscal constraints tighten, there's a growing conversation about moving beyond short-term aid to building sustainable, enterprise-driven solutions. How can we design programs that does not only provide immediate relief, but also empower people to create lasting economic opportunities? Now, joining us to discuss this is Chidimma Makuachukwu. She is the founder of the Masterminds with Ada Anambra, Executive Director at Nova Light Girl Child and Empowerment Foundation. She's also a former National Program Manager at Nigeria's Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. Good morning, Chidimma. Thank you so much for joining us on Business Morning. Unmute. Can you please help us unmute your mic, Chidimma? Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes, perfect. Good morning.
Okay, so good morning. Thank you.
All right, now let's go straight into it and let's set the context. From your experience in the ministry, what would you say are the biggest successes and challenges of Nigeria's recent poverty alleviation programs?
Okay, thank you once again, Business Notes. Um, from my experience when we were there, implementation of some of our flagship programs like the conditional cash transfer, the GEEP, the GVG, the shelter program. We have a lot of relief materials that we are spread across the IDPs, the refugees, sustainable materials. And these are courtesy of the hard work of Dr. Beta Edo, the humanitarian minister, and she diversified a lot of means to make sure that implementations of these programs took place, and there were successes to it. The conditional cash transfer, we were able to record more than 2.5 million beneficiaries. And previously, how they do it, it was done in a way that the vulnerable people were not properly reached, because not everybody have how will I put it, the bank apps. Not every, some use USSD, not all of them are open to some financial fintech cards. So she went to the grassroots and made sure that even with your phone number, you can access the conditional cash transfer. Um, Even with identifying with cooperative in your communities, you can access, and that was one of the successes. So people, in as much as they have what they are doing, they know that at the end of the day, they are receiving 25,000 naira from the government. They'll just see the alert in their bank account. And another thing I'm going to point out is there were reduction, right? There were a reduction of poverty headcount out of them. I'm referring to 2023. As of 2023 till, like I said, the last 9 months now, outside the ministry have been on a standstill because there was like a hold to some of the implementation. But as of then, I can attest to you that the flagship programs implementation went so well, and I hope that the government we understand the perspective and take the necessary step in making sure that the shift continues towards direct social investment and better targeting techniques to help us strengthen aid delivery, because that's one of the challenges we have. Thank you.
Let me ask this directly. Don't you think there is an urgent need to transition from just purely hate-based interventions, but rather to enterprise-driven solutions? Don't you think?
Of course, I agree with you. I agree with you. You know, I was referring to what was done before as regards to that. I agree with you. Definitely in Nigeria, to be honest with ourselves, we cannot depend on it again. We cannot. See, some of the big strong countries, the G5, the G7 that are sponsoring aid to Africa, many of them are not ready again to pull down their funds down here. So it's up to us to use our tongue to count our teeth and understand that, hey, even with the loans we are assessing now, we are able to assess now. Probably we don't know what the future holds, because the people that are funding these organizations are trying to say, no, we need to go back home and arrange our houses. So it's time for us to also go back home and arrange our houses. Whatever it is that we're going to give to people, whatever it is we are going to pull down to the vulnerable, we're going to make sure that it stops, that are sustainable, that you are giving them skills that are sustainable. You don't just give them laptop and leave them there. You don't just give them funds and leave them there. You empower them, and the empowerment, you follow it up to look for long-term success. Because if there's no long-term success, then we come back and cry to you again and say, hey, our food are finished. So while you are giving them the short-term measures, maybe provided them with food, 25,000 naira, make sure that the environment is enabling for them, for their businesses to work. Make sure the security is okay. Make sure that whatever it is they are doing, that the electricity is good and moving forward. These are the things that will sustain what they are bringing, their source of income. So whatever short-term aid you are also bringing at the same time, definitely um that it will help. And by the time they're able to stand on their feet, they will no longer depend on your short aid. And then we have issues of inflation, insecurity, that, like I said earlier, these are the undermining factors. But once we are providing the short-term aids, and also making sure there's an enabling environment, the security, the inflation rate is down, and also making sure that the economy is good for them, definitely they're going to adjust. And Nigerians on a normal, we are not aid dependent. We are solely dependent on ourselves. In fact, we have this tendency of not depending on government from history. So what people normally, the most important thing people want from government is just give us good rules, give us good security, give us an enabling environment. Let inflation come down, we are good to go. So I don't agree with aid depending on it. No, 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 no. Because it's not sustainable. It's never sustainable for any business that want to try, for any individual that want to try. It makes you come back again for crumbs. And when you come back again for crumbs, trust me, the necessary structural things that should be done will not be targeted, and it's not good as a nation for us. Thank you.
So, take us through the specific strategies that can ensure that beneficiaries of humanitarian programs are equipped to become economically self-reliant.
The most important thing I always say is the policy coming from the government side, the framework for execution. Once there are no civil service bureaucracy in delaying whatever funds, whatever grant, whether it's a loan, whether it's just a one of something, once that aspect is handled, that it's one, then when it comes to the implementation, you now come robust skills development and vocational training that align with the market needs, what the world is going to, the trajectory. There is a trend ongoing now. When you imbibe those skills in the youth or in the women or the older, whichever category you want to target on, you now provide them access to startup capital. You now involve maybe the microfinance bank, the fintechs, as will be enterprise incubation support to nurture the small businesses must come in place. Then you now foster mentorship, because that's the follow up. So once you are able to give them all those things and business advisory services to guide what they have started, you develop linkages with the value chain, whether it involve private sector or involve some international organizations or development partners to engage this, is still okay. You now do another thing, you promote saving culture, because that's another thing, right? If you want to ensure that the beneficiaries become economic self-reliant, you are giving them something, you want them to be trained on something good, you provide them the capital to start, good and fine. You build up an incubation support to nurture what they are starting. Then you now monitor with mentorship, business advisory services to help them. Then you now come and have develop linkages. I'm just trying to make it simple, simple, simple. Then you now do what again? Make sure there is a saving culture to what you made them to start. Then you now implement monitoring and adaptive support mechanisms that will go for like 1 year or 6 months. So by the time 1 year or 6 months, they're able to stand on their feet, they are able to say, yes, you supported me, government supported me, and this is the end goal. The end goal is I can stand on my feet, I can do this. These are some of the strategies that I think are good to ensure that beneficiaries become economically self-reliant. Thank you.
When we started this conversation, you gave an example of a program that was done in 2023. But can you share another example of a program you've worked on that successfully blended aid with enterprise creation?
Okay. So I was national program manager for shelter for the vulnerable population, providing low-cost housing for the vulnerable populations. And the program entirely is to target displaced persons, the poorest of the poor, the IDPs, to move from the camps to the ancestral homes. Now, in the process of interfacing with stakeholders, the state governors, the local government chairman, the community leaders, we now found that some of the ancestral homes had issues of conflict. We now say, okay, now take another step. Okay, look at what we're going to do. All these were done under the monitoring and evaluation of Dr. Peter Edu. What else do we do? So the state governor give us another space, another land that is acceptable by the people. Those are the people that cannot go to their ancestral homes. That is acceptable by them, acceptable by community leaders, because we don't want to have a situation where we are done putting on houses, building them where to reset. It's like a mini estate. When they will resettle, they will now say, oh, we can't stay here. No, there must be a communal MOU, which we sign with some of the communities. I say, this is where you want to stay because of your ancestral home has conflict issues. And even as a conflict issues is ongoing, we were already interfacing with the security forces to make sure that there is a calm to handle that aspect. Why we factor another means? I'm referring to those that did not want to go back to their ancestral homes. Then those that wanted to go back to their ancestral home, that was a different scenario. They now provide the hectares of land, clearing was done, processes we're starting to putting up the construction. We have the 1 bedroom, the 2 bedroom to put out for them depending on the capacity of the family. So the idea was to move people from the camps, the IDP camps, the refugees that are coming in, and put them in the shelter homes. This is one of a kind I've not done in Nigeria, and it's so unfortunate that the program was suspended because of what happened in the ministry, and at the end of the day, the person that came in did not took up the route to keep it going. But we made sure that the necessary stakeholders and the frameworks were put in place, policies that will help to factor what we want to do was put in place, and the project was started. The pilot phases started with Benue, Cross Rivers, some northern states. So the idea was, this is one of out of 13 programs that Dr. Bete put in place, and all this was to make sure that we factor a sustainable approach in tackling poverty, in alleviating poverty in Nigeria. So to cut it short and to round it up, it was all about providing shelter for the vulnerable population and making sure that in as much as there are other government poverty alleviation programs for them, shelter was a key, something that was absent in Nigeria for the past decades, right? We don't have it, what we call shelter homes, where people live. In the shelter home, the structure of the prototype, because we did a lot of prototypes, right? To make sure that people also understand what we want to do and they adapt to it, and we're able to say, okay, this can 1 bedroom can accommodate family of 4, 2 bedroom can accommodate a family of 6. So okay, this is possible. And people, there was a text run on all of it for a couple of months, and that's by the. So the whole idea was to say, okay, even as you are receiving 25,000 naira from government, even as you are receiving some loans and grants, you see what government wants to give you a home. So you stay here, you are homeless, you stay here for a while, not for a while, pardon me, you stay here permanently. That was the agenda, permanently, till you are able to stand on your own and you feel like, oh, I can now rent, I can now build my own house. You move, then the spaces that are going to be vacant, other people that are homeless will come in. It will be a regulated enterprise and a mini estate run by both the federal government and the state government. That was the whole ethics of the office that I had. Thank you.
All right. We've been going on and on about the government, so let's move our focus to the private sector role. So, what role should the private sector and social entrepreneurs play in scaling these sustainable poverty alleviation initiatives?
When it comes to private sector, their roles are more of investment, innovation, and models to create both the um, empowerment skills, the jobs, and the initiatives. Government is more like provide finances in some cases. Some it's PPP, some it's partnership, some it's collaboration. So their role still move in they driving innovations. They are the people to come to say, hey, do you want to code? Let's have. Because let me go back to my office on the road. So inside this many estates, what we included were green environment. It's a solar power. It was solely solar powered. And these were initiatives that came in from international development partners, the private sector too. They drove it and said, okay, this is we brought in the initiative, okay, and they said, okay, you are gonna drive it because it's gonna be more flexible and we're gonna achieve a lot of success with you on board. That's the role of the private sector. They know how to develop impact-driven ventures, addressing social gaps, adapting to solutions to local needs. Let's say technical aid or technical support aside that, and they know how to bring efficiency, scalability, on how to push things, market sophistications, like that is lacking in purely government-led initiative. I always tell people, if you want things to work, government, you have the fund, good and fine. You might not necessarily know how to pivot and drive it, bring in the private sector to say, okay, private sector might involve development partners, they might involve NGOs, they might involve investment banking, they might involve fintech, they might involve innovation partners. It's so diverse and broad. So these are some of the roles that private sector comes into play in scaling poverty alleviation.
So let's go back to the government. How do you think the government policies can better support these grassroots businesses, especially amongst women and the youth?
Yeah, for government to support grassroots, the most important thing I always go is the environment. So for you to support what's going on, create an enabling environment for them. Once they have an enabling environment, they can strive. Even if you give a poor man 25,000 naira and still give him enough security, he has electricity, even with the vulcanizer he's doing, he knows there is light. He knows I can buy for at a cheaper price. He knows the food, it's affordable. The 25,000 you're giving is just a bonus. Trust Nigerians, we know how to strive. We are hard working human beings. We are very, very hard working. So once we encourage this economic self-reliance by providing the necessary things for them, it will stimulate local economies to be social with you. Once we create the jobs and make sure the environment are okay, we address the root causes of poverty because you already build capacity for them. And trust Nigerians, like I said, we know how to strive. And once we also put our empowerment or whatever we want to implement beyond direct aid reach to build sustainable community development, we are good to go. And I will point out to something that has been in my heart for a while. Once we as citizens too are able to monitor and evaluate the premises of the government, the funds the government receive, look at what's going on. The autonomy granted to local governments. Now, the chairman, they can able to implement projects independently because they receive funds directly from the government, federal government. The state governors have increased monthly. So somebody that is taking 2 billion is taking more than that, thrice, triple what they have been taking before. Once we as citizens also are able to say, Mr. Governor, you received this money so months ago. What did you do with it? Once we're able to question and demand accountability from them too, in as much they are providing the funds, we are hearing the trillions and the billions on a monthly basis coming into our state government, and we are able to monitor and evaluate how it's spent. all of us will be good at the same time. Thank you.
Now let's move our focus to the future outlook now. If, because you have experience in this, if you were designing a national poverty reduction program today, what three elements would you prioritize for lasting impact?
Okay, three elements I'm gonna prioritize. One is I will strengthen institution capacity. The bureaucracy of the civil service, it's a very strong factor we as citizens don't understand. That means when we see some things that come out newly, we not be like, ah, no, no, this is not done. This it's not how it should be. Once there is institutional framework well utilized, spelled out, executed as well, that's the first thing to and to cut the bureaucracy that prevent fundings to reach the vulnerable people, cut the bureaucracies that make um, things not to work because it comes down from the federal. Then I will now work on inclusive economic empowerment. My focus will be on enterprise development. In as much as I'm giving you skills and training, I will increase financial inclusion and monitor you. I will make sure that the private sectors are in there so that you work with the trend, the innovation, and the trajectory and work with the world is going to. I don't want. I always feel like, in a way, indirectly, Nigeria, when it comes to empowerment or reducing poverty, we are slightly lacking behind on how things should go. Yeah, there are some steps we are taking, but that's not our A game or the A game expected. Another thing, like I say, is strong governance and accountability. Once there is a robust monitoring system that monitor what is going out, what is coming in, the implementation, how people are taking it, how it's properly executed, funds are they reaching the necessary people, the skills are the necessary people getting it, very, very important. The community leaders, is there a mutual understanding between stakeholders? Because one thing is to federal government to say I want to do this. Another thing is the local mind to say I don't understand what you are doing. Do they understand what you really want to do? So strong governance and making sure that the necessary frameworks are in place also helps. Then integrated social protection. Yeah, we have social protection like the conditional cash transfer, but let it be integrated into health, education, enterprise support. That will help the demography of the needs to be holistic, like the impact will be holistic. You don't just concentrate on the women and leave the youth behind. You don't just, as you're concentrating on women, you don't just give them the loan. You also bring in measures that will handle their health, their education sector. You also bring in the measures that will handle the community they are. So all round implementation of factors to alleviate poverty more in place. Thank you.
Still on the future outlook, how do you see Nigeria's poverty alleviation strategy evolving over the next 5 years? And I'm talking about the light of economic reform and budget realities. How do you see it evolving in the next 5 years? Okay, I think we lost her. I think we lost her for a bit. So Chidimma was about to tell us about the how she would see Nigeria's poverty alleviation strategy evolving over the next 5 years. And before that, she gave a well-designed strategy on how poverty reduction can be reduced in Nigeria, um, and also how the government policies can be better, in scaling sustainable poverty alleviation. Now, before we have the second part of our conversation, I'm just going to give my take on 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 the conversation that we had. So, from the conversation from aid to enterprise, it's obviously a very powerful idea but in Nigeria, it's wishful thinking without, if we do not fix the fundamentals. And what are these fundamentals I'm talking about? I'm talking about reliable power. I'm talking about solid infrastructure, the rule of law, and the real access to these capitals. So we should understand that enterprise alone isn't a magic bullet. Without an enabling environment, without without an enabling environment, it risks becoming just another development buzzword, producing a few boutique success stories, 25,000, and what it's not. Success stories just for reports, but it is still leaving poverty as a profitable status quo for the powerful. Now, the new skill needs structural reform. And when I mean structural reform, that would be for it to be implemented, and not just shifts in slogan every now and again. Not just, oh, there's this poverty alleviation program here, there's this poverty alleviation program there, and there is no implementation. It's just shortcut for people to see that, okay, the government is working. But like I always say, we can only hope it gets better, and then watch how it unfolds, and hope that the strategies that Chidimma has would be implemented by the government agencies. We'll go on a quick break now. When we come back, we're going to be having the second part of our conversation right here on Business Morning. Just stay with us.